morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Ingram Jones, and I have with me world-class trainer and mentor, Uncle James Bashir. Uncle, how are you?
I'm pleased. Pleased to see that I'm alive and well.
It's good to see you. Good to see a smile on your face. Okay. It's been an interesting weekend in boxing. First and foremost, our minds turned to Nick Blackwell after his fight with Chris Eubank Jr. Let's first talk about the fight itself, Eubank Jr. and Nick Blackwell. What are your thoughts of the fight?
It's sad that these kind of situations continue to happen in our beloved sport of boxing. I would think that it would happen more often in mixed martial art fights, but it doesn't. You hardly hear of any injuries. If there are injuries, we're not hearing of it. It's more commonplace in boxing. And I think that is happening because of the inability of the corners. Yeah, where most of the weight and blame should be placed not on the referee, but on the corner itself, because the corners are the guys that are spending all the time with these fighters. And they should be able to read between the lines and determine that something is wrong long before it gets out of hand. They should be able to read between the lines and say something's wrong with our guy. He's not performing well. I felt that this Nick Blackwell's fight should have been stopped. I'm speaking for myself personally. I would have stopped the fight in between 5 and 7. It would have never went that far. I felt that the people in his corner let him down. I might be wrong, but that's my opinion. That they let this guy down. This guy was taking a beating almost from the offset. I would have alerted him at least by the third round that if you can't do better than you said, we need to pull the plug on this because you're getting hurt. And nobody stepped up. Then the referee didn't do anything. He'll justify it by saying, well, the guy was fighting back. Yeah, fighting back, but look at the punishment he was taking. You know, I mean, even though he was fighting back, he was taking a massive beating. So I thought that it should have been stopped prior to that. Yeah, if you look back on the just the recent tragedies, Magomed Abdul Salamov in the Garden, Nick, some smaller fights in between, but lives are being lost here. We look back a few years ago, Jesus Chavez versus Levander Johnson. Another fight that I felt that should have been stopped far sooner than when it was stopped. I think it went into the 9th or 10th round before it was stopped. But he was taking a horrible beating coming out the gate. The first 3, 4, 5 rounds, he took a beating. And I think he had his father and his brother was training him. I don't know. I think they said to the press after the fight that they didn't stop the fight because Levander didn't want the fight to stop. But Levander wasn't the chief second. The father was. Levander's not the boss in that corner. The boss in that corner is the chief second. They're responsible for the well-being of the fighter. This is designed to be a competitive sport, but it's not designed for people to be injured or crippled or maimed or die. You know, this is a sport. And somebody's got to have enough sense to come in and say that this fight should be stopped. But I think that the people in the corners are putting winning before the well-being of the fighters. We want to win, and that seems to be the ultimate goal, that we want to win, and we don't want to watch out for the safety of the fighter.
It is noted that in title fights, the champion is given more time to recuperate and to get himself back into a fight. You often hear it in a world title fight. Oh, this is a world title fight. You know, the referee shouldn't stop the fight early. You know, that a fighter should...
Bullshit. We're talking living and dying. These people have mothers, fathers, wives, children. So all of that, the champion got to be given. It doesn't matter whether the guy's a champion or a 4-round fighter. It's a life. We're talking about a life. And we've seen enough injuries in the past to know that it's far better to stop the fight prematurely as opposed to stopping it far too late. We don't know whether this young man will regain all of his faculties, whether he'll be able to walk right.
From what I understand, he's up now talking to people. That's why I understand. I don't know how true this is. He's up, and he's up and talking to people now. So that's positive signs. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, that's a good thing. You know, that's a sigh of relief for me. You know, because I love boxing, and I love boxers. I love the people who are making the sport what it is, past and present. You know, I love those guys. Those guys are very courageous people, and when they go up in that ring, they put their lives on the line, and that's come from the 4-round undercard all the way up to the championship fights. I respect those guys heavily, you know.
It's interesting. I spoke to Nick Blackwell just after he weighed in, and I asked Nick Blackwell and I asked his trainer, is boxing a mug's game? His trainer, I can't remember his trainer's name again for a minute. It'll come back to me in a minute. Gary Lockett. His trainer, Gary Lockett, said, no, it's not mug's game. Best sport in the world. Nick Blackwell said, best sport in the world, but the business isn't great. Along the lines of that. So he said the sport is brilliant, but the business side of it, not great.
I can understand his logic. I can understand his reasoning. You know, because these guys, a lot of them are getting the short end of the stick. You know, because they surround themselves with buffoons and idiots. You know, people who are great at selling themselves, making people believe that they know what they're doing. In reality, they don't know what they're doing. You know, so yeah, I can understand where Nick was coming from.
When you're talking about buffoons, can you elaborate more in terms of knowing what they do? I mean, I know you've spoken to it many times, but sometimes, you know, people feel maybe you need to elaborate more. So,
buffoons, people who come into the sport and they make people believe that they're very knowledgeable of the sport, but in reality, they are not knowledgeable. You can see it in their actions. You can see it in their decision making that they're not knowledgeable, that they're getting on the job training, and in doing so, they're causing fighters to get hurt. You know, by the time the fighters realize they align themselves with the wrong people, their careers are over.
Okay, so you stop a fight early. Here's an example where if you saw the fight Froch versus Groves, the first fight, the fight was stopped early. I thought the referee was doing a good job. A lot of people would disagree with me. Then we get the rematch, but the same guy ends up winning.
What did I tell you before the rematch happened? I told you that the referee stopped the fight at the right time. And I said, in the rematch, I said to you, I said that in the rematch, you'll see that this guy's no match for this guy. And what happened? Exactly what I told you.
Cold.
So you got to look at the pros and cons of stopping a fight or allowing a fight to go on. You got to see things before it happened. In the Abdul Salamis fight, I felt that the fight was allowed to go on too long. There were telltale signs in the first 3 rounds. Telltale signs that I have an injury, something's wrong. He kept looking at the TV monitor. He walked back to the ring. He wouldn't sit down. You can go back and look at the tape tonight. You can YouTube the tape, and you see him looking up at the television monitor, and he's feeling his face, and he's touching his face, and he's asking questions like, is my face broke, or something to that effect. Is my face broke? Am I injured? Or he's asking strange questions, indicating that something is wrong. And as the rounds carried on, you could still see him, saying that, I can't feel my ear, I can't feel something to that nature that he couldn't. I was there that night. He kept complaining about his face or something. But they were telltale signs that this guy's been to the dance at least 18 or 19 times. And he's acting so weird and so strange tonight. So that's a sign that something is wrong. And then there after the fight, nobody took him right to the hospital. It was almost an hour, maybe an hour and a half before he got to the hospital. So, they're telltale. Now, I'm not pointing the fingers at nobody. But at the same time, somebody's got to be responsible. Somebody's got to put their foot down. I said to, who was it? I was talking to somebody. But I said to someone some time ago, I had Monty Barrett boxing Nikolai Valuev in Chicago some years ago. And I didn't stop the fight because Nikolai was hurting Monty so bad. I stopped the fight because Monty Barrett was exhausted. He was tired. Nikolai was laying on top of him. Big 360, I think 338 pounds he weighed that night. And he was laying on top of Monty. And Monty kept engaging him in clinches and stuff and wrestling with this big guy. And he was just exhausted. And I said, looking back, I should have stopped this fight 2-3 rounds prior to the time that I did. But listening to people in the corner, when you're the chief second, you have to act on your own instinctiveness. You can't be influenced by people in the corner. People kept holding my arm saying, let him go another round, let him go another round. But they wasn't taking those punches. And then finally I saw Nikolai started manhandling Monty, pushing him around and stuff, and I said, this guy's tired, I got to stop this fight. And I motioned the referee, please stop the fight. And the referee basically waved his hand and said, well, wait a minute, because I got the impression the referee was saying, well, wait a minute, he's starting to come back. And I said to my mind, no, the fight's over. I want to stop this fight because all it takes is one shot, one good shot. And then I've got a guy who's got paralysis, a guy that's got brain damage. I can stop this now. And that was my instinct. I got in the ring, walked across the ring, and stopped the fight. I stopped the fight.
So let's go back to these telltale signs. I know you said that about Abdusalamov. Now let's talk more about the telltale signs. You're in a corner as a trainer. What are you looking for when you think something's wrong with your guy? What would you be looking for? What would you be analysing?
Something out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Something that's not telling the story of the fighter that I know. Anything that's out of the ordinary. I know how he sits. I know how he acts in the corner. I know how he acts when he's fatigued. I notice it because I'm with him every day. And when he starts talking a different way, it's different things that says that something is wrong. Alarm system, just like your child. Just like your mother, your father, your wife. You know when something is wrong. And people say, how do you know? Your answer is, I just know. I can't explain how I know. I just know. When I look in the fighter's eyes, the way he responds to me, when I'm saying, listen, you got to do this, you got to do that, I can tell how he responds that something is not right.
You talk about fighting spirit. Is a fighter's spirit based on the adrenaline when they don't know when to quit? Is it that's kicking in when the brain is saying stop, but the body's saying let's keep going? What is that?
The fighter's nature, that's what makes them fighters, their natures. I'm going to come back. I'm going to be on top in a minute. Right now, this guy is on top, but in a moment, I'm going to be on top. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to get through. I'm going to get through with a jab right hand. I'm going to get through with a big hook. He can be countered with a right hand. It's always that tomorrow in their mind. I've got another trick up my sleeve that I'm going to get across with. And that's what allows these guys to think that they can keep competing in the fight. They're fighters. They're fighters, and they're always going to think that I got one more trick up my sleeve that I'm going to get back in this fight with one counter right hand or counter left hook.
Okay, great fights. Castillo and Corrales. Diego Corrales. Look at that. Diego Corrales completely out of the fight. Comes back and stops Castillo?
Well, I know the fans probably wouldn't like it, but I probably would have stopped that fight. Castillo probably would have won the fight. It probably would have never got to the point where Corrales knocked him out, because I probably would have stopped the fight prior to that. Because Corrales had took so much punishment before that, and Castillo took some punishment. Corrales was taking a huge amount of punishment, and I think that I would have stopped that fight.
Gatti Ward, the trilogy, those fights wouldn't happen. Truly.
The first fight with Gatti Ward, I'd have stopped the fight. At one time, Gotti was totally out of it on the ropes, and I would have stopped it. It would have been a TKO loss for Gotti, because I'd have stopped that fight. I would not have let that fight go. You can't. These guys, these corners, they are so brave. They are so brave for other people's lives. But if you look at the Gotti Ward first fight, I don't know, it must have been the 9th or 10th round or 11th round. He was standing up by the ropes, and he's taking a horrible beating. He was totally exhausted, didn't know where he was. And somehow he dug down himself and came back. You cannot allow that to happen.
Evander Holyfield, Burt Cooper. 3rd round, Evander Holyfield gets caught with a shot. He's all over the ropes. He's all over. On the floor, getting up. And then all of a sudden, comes back into the fight. So where'd you draw the line? You've got guys like Holyfield that relish a situation like that.
That fight, I can understand the logic. Neither guy was cut real bad. No, there had been no really brutal points in that fight. He was just shook up. He was jawed up, not dazed a bit. That's a different kind of situation.
Bo Holyfield, 10th round, a much physically bigger man. Holyfield in the 10th round. Comes back in the 10th. In the 11th again. Hits with a big uppercut. Gets dropped. Gets back up. Manages to do 12 rounds.
Those kind of fights, I could see them letting that fight go on. I could see it. Because he was so game and so competitive, and he was doing a good job. He wasn't doing a terribly bad job. So, those fights had to let go on. No one was really cut bad. Busted up bad. I can see those fights go on. I can understand the logic of letting those fights go on. But you take a fight like Mikey Barayev and Abdul Salam, these guys were banging each other in the head all night long.
Okay, here's a fighter that a lot of people seem to like, but I cringe every time I see him fight. Ruslan Provodnikov.
Oh my God!
He just, every time I see that guy fight, he makes him cringe because he just has no defense. People love to see because he takes a great shot, but that don't, God knows what it'd be like 10 years down the line with him.
I mean, he takes a terrible beating. It's the corners. The corners are the lives are in the hands of the people who are governing those corners, and they're big gamblers. They get big gamblers with other people's lives, and there are many people who are listening to this interview who probably differ and say, "Well, you gotta let the fight go on." No, I don't have to let it go. If a guy can't, I'll communicate with my guy in the corner and say, "Listen, if you cannot do better than this here, we got to pull the plug on this fight." We got to pull the plug on this fight. Years ago, I had a young man trained Andre Paulette. I think Andre Paulette was 38, 39 and 4.
Is he Guyanese?
Yes. Andre Paulette, 39 and 4. He had about 34, 35 knockouts. He was a brutal puncher. But in the end, he seemed to get hurt with anything. He'd get hit and he'd get knocked out. And if he didn't get knocked out, he got up and he was unstable on his legs, he didn't have no good balance and stuff. And I simply would just, he simply didn't have good balance when he got up. If he got hurt bad, and he just didn't have no balance when he got up. And it was reasoning to stop the fight. And I came up to him in the last fight. He fought Harold Scanias in Florida, either the Carolinas somewhere. And Scania stopped him, I believe, in 2 rounds. Got hit with a clean shot, a couple clean shots, went down, didn't have no legs when he got up, and the referee stopped it. And he felt the referee stopped the fight too soon. So I waited until everything calmed down. We got to the airport. I said, Andre, I said, boxing is not for you anymore. To get out. I know your wife. I know your kids. This is not for you no more. You need to go on and do something else. There's life after boxing. You've done what you can do in the sport, and now it's time to get out. And he got very upset with me in the airport. Very upset. But I was looking out for his welfare. And later on, he called me, months later. It must have been about 16 months later, 17 months later. He said, oh, man, thank you. He called me up late at night one night. He said, hey, man, thank you for doing what you did. Thank you for making me aware of what I had to lose, my life with my family. My sons is 17 years old now and 16 years old now. My daughter is so on and so on. So he said, man, thank you for doing that. He said, I couldn't see it then because the fighter in me wanted to fight. The fighter in me felt like I still had an opportunity to fight. But now I see what you was talking about. I told him in the airport, I said, hey, man, you got a lot to lose, man. You got a beautiful wife, beautiful kids, a beautiful life. It's life after boxing. You've done what you could do in the sport. Walk away. He had lost 2 fights. Both fights were separated by 11, 12 months. And we came back and tried again. He got knocked out again. Both fights was in the second or third round. He got knocked out. And I said, no, something wrong here where you can't, your resilience, you can't take a punch no more. And I just told him to pull the plug. And later on, he thanked me for it.
Roy Jones Jr. We're going to go at this at 2 angles. Roy Jones Jr. first. His punch resistance. Was that because we go back to when he got knocked out by Tava because he lost all that weight? Or was that because he just didn't have a good chin in the beginning?
God only knows what it is. My thinking is that his anatomy does not respond well to getting punched. His speed and his awkwardness saved him over the years. Nobody could get to him. Nobody could really land those punches. He was just so quick. And he could punch, So he had some things going for him early on in his career. He was so quick and so awkward. And then he'd hit you from these weird angles and get you out of there before you could check him. But I think that it boils down to anatomy. Some people can endure punches better than other people. When you think about it, the anatomy, God didn't design the anatomy to be punched on anyway. So some people's going to endure better than others. And Roy's not one of those guys that endures a lot.
What about your thoughts about him fighting a fan?
I think it's a sad way to get out of boxing. He might have a different view, but in my opinion, I think it's a sad way for a great fighter like Roy Jones to leave boxing. He shouldn't be in the boxing ring now. He should be in a promotional company. He should be in a management job. He should be doing something else with his talent, with his insight to the sport. But boxing with a fan and knocking fans out, so that's a sad way to lead the sport, I think. I mean, his legacy is intact, but the life after that is terrible. This is not good.
But how intact is that legacy? Surely with every fight that goes past, his legacy gets more and more tainted, does it not?
No, I don't think anything can really mar what he did, But my thinking, the best time for him to get out is right after he beat John Ruiz for the heavyweight championship. Is just brush his hands and say, "Okay, folks, I'm done. Whatever y'all got to say, whatever you got to think, whatever opinion you got, great. Just let's leave it as the saying, what would have happened? He should have got out. He could have lived off that victory forever. But he stayed and he marred it. He marred it with the Tarver fights. Then the Glenn Johnson. Then the Green fight down in Australia. Then Lebedov up in Russia, and
so on and so forth.
And then now he opens the door to speculation. The only reason that he was as good as he was he didn't get hit on the chin. You understand? You open the door to speculation by taking these fights. Had he got out with the Ruiz fight, it still would have been speculation, but he would have had some justification and more power. But by him getting knocked out by Tarver, and Johnson, Green, the better, and now the last guy, Enzo McAnally, so now the speculation gives some credibility. I said to a reporter in America some time ago, he says to me one day, he says that Roy Jones might be arguably the best pound-for-pound fighter ever. I said, are you serious? And this is when Roy was on top. He said, I said, and I wasn't saying it sarcastically. So I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, I'm serious. I said, do you have any idea what Bob Foster would have did to Roy Jones? Well, Roy was too quick, he was this and that, this and that. I said, sir, do you have any idea what Bob Foster might have did to Roy Jones? At light heavy, I'm talking. And there were so many middleweights that may have given Roy problems. I mean, there were big thoughts that Roy never wanted to fight Gerald McClellan. And Roy just never wanted to deal with that. Roy Jones, like I said, he's a great fighter. But, even great fighters would avoid other great fighters, So I think the best time, like I said, for me to get out.
Yeah. Here's another thing to discuss. The psyche of Chris Eubank Jr. We know Chris Eubank Sr., after he damaged Michael Watson, was never the same fighter again. Can we see Chris Eubank Jr. being that aggressive ever again as a fighter? Or was that fight broken what potentially could be an very interesting career?
I think that his father's insight after the tragedy in his own life, his father could share that experience with the son to help the son avoid going through that. I think that young Eubank will be all right.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he'll be all right. I don't think he'll be affected by this. And the fact that the young man has come back. So I think that Eubank he's going to be all right.
Will that take off any sort of killer instinct that he may have?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I don't think that's going to affect him either.
It's interesting. Andre Ward is back.
Yeah, Andre is back. He'll have to do better. He'll have to do more.
Okay.
If he wants to really compete with Kovalev. But right now, he's not ready. He's not ready. Looking at the fight, he's not ready. I think that Andre knows he's not ready. I think he needs another fight, maybe 2 fights. I doubt he'll let 2 fights happen, but he needs at least another fight. And he'll be prepared.
What is it about? What was it that you saw that you didn't think he was ready for Kovalev?
Pardon me?
What was it that you saw that made you think he wasn't ready for Kovalev just yet?
Well, the fact that he went 12 rounds with a guy that really was intimidated by him. Ward's speed and boxing style had this guy befuddled. And that guy was intimidated. He was second-guessing his punches before he threw them. And if I threw this punch, he might hit me with the right hand, left hook. Oh, man, you can see the guy thinking that. If I throw this punch, this guy's going to hit me with 4 or 5 punches. The guy was intimidated by Andre Ward's boxing style, his ring generalship, and his overall ability. He was affecting the guy. And Andre couldn't get the guy out of there. He couldn't get the guy out of there. I just don't agree that people say that he carried the guy, but I don't think Andre's that kind of guy. Andre's too wise for that. Andre will get you out of there when he can get you out of there. He couldn't get him out.
So if you're looking at Andre Ward now, stepping in against Kovalev, what's the areas, you're his trainer, what's the areas you'd work on before he fights Kovalev? What would you like to see as a trainer before he steps in to take that big fight?
fast counterpunching. Fast counterpunching. It's what he's going to need to offset Kovalev's bullying style. Kovalev is going to try to pressure Ward. So fast counterpunching and combination punching is what he's going to need to beat Kovalev. Fast counterpunching, fast combination punching.
Okay, let me throw this at you and tell me what you think. I'm of the belief that both Kovalev and Gennady Golovkin are good at long range, but up close on the ropes, when their backs against the ropes, I'm not so sure how good fighters they are. I think they need leverage to throw their shots, and I think if you can get them onto the back foot and get on their chest, get on the inside, get on their chest and fight on the inside, they'd be vulnerable. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I haven't seen very many people put their backs to the wolves and get in their chest. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to determine that. I just haven't seen nobody that was successful doing that.
See who
and over consistency.
Willie Monroe, when he fought Gennady Golovkin, I know he got dropped and all the rest of it, and he got up and then started throwing punches. But if Gennady Golovkin looked vulnerable to the uppercuts.
He was vulnerable to a few things, but again, this Willie wasn't a big puncher, but he had a good boxing style. He had speed on his side, you know. And it just wasn't a lot to me to take from that fight in a way to beat Golovkin. One thing about Golovkin and Kovalev, when you're boxing them, you're boxing in a minefield. You step on something, you hear click, don't worry about it, this is over. You know, these guys are brutal punchers. They're brutal punchers. And they can wear a guy out with those punches, wherever the punches land.
Isn't with guys that those sort of power punches, don't you have to keep them pivoting, keep them moving, and don't allow them to set?
You know,
I know I'm saying it's not as easy as that, but I mean,
it's a nice strategy. It's wishful thinking, but it's just easier said than done.
Of course, it's easier said than done, but you've got to have some sort of strategy going in against those type of guys.
No, you can't let them set. You got to keep them moving. You got to keep them from setting with their punches, but it's very, very difficult.
And you got to have a punch of your own as well.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't, you can move all you want.
No, if you don't have anything to make them pay respect to, you got problems. You got problems. I still say that these two guys, Golovkin and Kovalev, they haven't really had the kind of competition that you could say was really rugged. Kovalev, it didn't have the Matthew Saad Muhammad, the Michael Spinks and the White Kawi. He didn't have those kind of guys, that would make him think twice about throwing them big bombs, because they would throw big bombs back. Golovkin didn't have Marvin Hagler. He didn't have those guys in that middleweight division of that era. He didn't have those kind of guys to face off against. The Boogaloo Watts, the Willie the Worm, those guys that wouldn't be afraid of him. Guys that were big punchers too, that would punch back. See, I don't care how tough you are, I've been a boxer. I don't care how tough you are. You find somebody to punch like you can punch. I'll punch you hard. If you got any sense, you say, God, man, I can't. You start thinking, you just say, hey, I can't go back up in there like that because I can get hit again.
You tell you a guy I'd love to have seen Gennady Golovkin fight was Jerry McLennan. That's the fight I'd love to have seen.
Yeah.
Because he can box, he can move, he can take a shot, and heck, he'll take you out of there. I saw him just the other day watching him fight Julian Jackson. And them two going bomb for bomb, blow for blow.
Yeah. Him and Julian Jackson were going at it, The one thing that I give Abel Sanchez credit for, Abel Sanchez is a master at having his guy to fight smaller guys, like a career move. If you look back at Terry Norris's career, he was always aiming at the smaller guys. Pernell Whitaker, Melvin Taylor, anybody else. But he never let Terry move up just 5 pounds to go to the middleweights. He kept Terry Norris away from the middleweights. You notice that? Norris never moved up the middleweight. And Norris was a big guy. He wasn't no little guy. He was thick. And you saw Norris walking around, you see how thick he was. And Abel Sanchez would never let him move up to 60 pounds. So I saw what he did with Terry Norris by calling out the guy that was in the welterweight and the junior welterweight. He was calling those guys to come up. And for a while, he was successful with it. But he wouldn't venture and go up to that middleweight division himself. And he's doing the same thing with Gennady Golovkin. He will not venture up to that 68 pounds. He wants to stay right there at 60 and call those other guys beneath. Come on up, we'll fight. Come on up, we'll fight.
He's of the belief that why do we need to move up? Nobody forced Marvin Hagler to move up. So why should Gennady Golovkin have to move up?
Well, somebody can come back and say, well, you did that twice. You did it with Terry Norris, too. Why you didn't move Terry Norris up?
Well, I asked him the question, and he said, it's not about that. What it really is because he wants Gennady Golovkin to become the undisputed middleweight champion of the world. He wants all the belts.
Okay, I can understand that. What's the holdup? It's been a few years now.
Canelo's got the WBC belt.
But how long can Canelo hold on if he's going to fight at junior middleweight? They're going to strip him of that belt soon.
Well, that bleeds us into our next question. Khan v Canelo.
What'd you say?
It leads us on to our next point. Khan versus Canelo.
I'm not so excited about that fight. I just don't think that Khan's going to be able to beat Canelo. He can box for a while. He'll probably win the first few rounds.
From then.
Until Canelo starts getting on the inside and start punching him. When he catches him, that's going to change the whole complex of the fight. I don't put much stock in that fight. I see Canelo winning that fight late, 9th, 10th round maybe. And I think that he stops him,
Here's something for you. People believe that if he moves up in weight, that he'll be able to take better punishment or absorb a better punch. Well, I said, okay, he moved up from lightweight to welterweight and got knocked out. He moved up to welterweight and got rocked by the light punching Chris Algieri. So he's going to jump 2 divisions, move up to middleweight. That makes him slower, surely.
They fight at middleweight?
Yes.
I thought they fight at 54.
Well, 50, it's a middleweight. It's for the middleweight championship of the world.
It's for the middleweight championship?
Yes.
Oh, man. He got some guys at junior middleweight that would give him fits. Yeah, junior middleweight, some guys that would give him fits.
Trout,
and he's
going what's his name? What's the other guy's name? The WBO champion? What's his name? Andrade?
The brothers.
The Charlo brothers.
Charlo brothers, yeah, they can. Those guys fight. They can get some problems. I mean, at junior middleweight, just talking about going to middleweight, he's going to get knocked off. He's not going to beat Canelo. I just don't think so.
He said Sugar Ray did it. That's when I got. He lost me there. Sugar Ray if Sugar Ray can move up and do it, I can do it. I said, but you ain't no Sugar Ray.
Not by a long shot. You're not even Sugar Ray Leonard. Not by a long shot. You're not even Sugar Ray Leonard. You talking about Sugar Ray can do it. You can't. Either one of those Sugar Rays, you can't be nothing that they were. No, sorry.
Not today.
Sorry. Not happening.
Which moves us on to our next point. Speaking of Sugar Ray, we're going to talk about Sugar Shane. Sugar Shane Mosley is back fighting for a world title. Back at welterweight. And guess this. Guess who's his trainer?
I know, I saw it.
Roberto Duran. He says that he'd be unbeatable if he had Roberto Duran in his corner. I think Sugar Shane liked the video I did. Don't know why. I wasn't,
And the guy he's fighting, I don't know that. Who is this guy?
I don't know, but if I was going to take a wild guess, I would go Danny Garcia, the newly crowned WBC welterweight champion.
But that's not the guy he's fighting, though. I saw he's got another name there that he's fighting.
Who's he fighting?
He's fighting somebody in the WBA title, and the guy's name I didn't recognize. I saw it on the internet, but I didn't recognize it.
Okay. Well, they said that according to his daddy, like they're going to cherry pick. That's what it is.
I mean, Shane Mosley is 44 years old. He's been through some tough wars. What is he still hanging around for? What is he still hanging around for?
What do you think of the Roberto Duran influence?
Nothing. I don't think much of it.
And while
I don't think Duran's going to make such an impact.
While we're at it, 44 years old, Shannon Briggs. David Haye told him to get a brain check, get his brain checked out, and then possibly they could fight. What are your thoughts on the whole Shannon Briggs fiasco at the moment?
Well, Shannon Briggs is such a good athlete. He's a good boxer, a good puncher, and he knows boxing inside and out, and he has durability. He can take it. I don't think none of these guys want anything to do with Shannon Briggs. I wouldn't want anything to do with him if I was the heavyweight champion. Or if I was in a position to avoid him, I would avoid him. And that's exactly what everybody is trying to do. Because they want him to get older. But he has boxing skills. And he's a puncher with both hands. He can punch with the left hook. He can punch with the right cross. He can punch with the jab. I trained Shannon for, I think, 3 fights. Some years ago, I trained him for 3 fights, and I could tell you firsthand, he can punch. He can punch with the jab, he can punch with the hook, the uppercut, the right hand, he can punch. And he has a great boxing IQ. And if he's in shape, he can cause some problems. So,
how do you think him and Haye would go? I've told everybody that the first couple of rounds with Haye Briggs is very interesting.
If I was training Shannon Briggs, I'd tell him to cut the ring off and force Haye to punch. I wouldn't play around with him. Not with Shannon's punching power. I wouldn't play around with him. I would tell Shannon to go right to him, cut the ring off behind his jab, cut that ring off, and bombs away.
Okay, we've got 3 British.
When I say bombs away, I mean bomb anywhere. Anything, shoulder, neck, head, anything. But Shannon has that kind of punching power that whatever he lands on, he's going to hurt it. I wouldn't let David get comfortable. I'd have him cut that ring off and bust him up. I'd bust through his guard like a freight train, you know. But David Haye himself is making a mockery of himself. With the last guy he fought, a guy nobody ever heard of, and I doubt very seriously if anybody will ever hear of him again. And now he's coming back. He's fighting the Cobra. What, the Cobra Plumbing?
Cobra Plumbing.
Yeah, I'm saying, you know, I have friends that I have friends who owns Cobra Plumbing Company. They used to do a commercial for them. You know, what did he try to give himself credibility? Say I'm fighting the Cobra. So he's going to make this guy seem like he's a really rough guy. I'm fighting the Cobra. The Cobra who? Nobody knows this guy. I have never heard of this guy. I've been around boxing over these years, man. I've never heard of this guy.
Where did he get him from?
I don't know. And I doubt very seriously. You know, and they say, well, he's doing with a smart guy. Look. Muhammad Ali stayed out of boxing for nearly 4 years. I think 4 months shy of 4 years in his exile.
Right.
He came out of exile. He fought Jerry Quarry in fight number 1. In fight number 2, he fought Oscar Bonavena. In fight number 3, he went right after the champion, Joe Frazier. Now, who does that after 4 years out of boxing? A man that feels like I'm the boss, so I'm going to show why I should be the boss. But David Haye is coming back, and he's finding these obscure. Where did he find these guys? Do they have a website for these guys? If you want to win, call win.com. I mean, David must be losing sleep at night finding these guys. Shannon Briggs could be his nemesis. Shannon, I'm telling you, I'm not. Now look, I wouldn't be mad with David. David avoided Shannon. You know, from a smart
business
point of view, it's a smart. Yeah.
Well away from him.
Because, well, I don't see nobody that wants to get into a Shannon.
Apart from David Allen, which we moved very quickly onto, David Allen fought Jason Gavin. Did you see the fight?
Gavin took Richard's place?
Yes. It was live on Sky.
What happened?
Well, from what I saw, one person came to fight and the other person came to hold.
Right.
And for 4 rounds, David landed some good shots on Jason Gavin, but Gavin was trying to old man him, trying to mess him about, hold him, grab him by his legs, rugby tackle him, bring him on the floor, all sorts of stuff. But you know, he landed a couple of good shots, Gavin, but was just sort. And then he just, I don't know, just retired in his stall to come out for the 5th round.
Right.
So a lot of people got on kind of David's back about it, but I've kind of looked at it. Look, you haven't had much of a amateur career. You've had 10 amateur fights. You've had This is your 9th pro fight, or your 9th pro fight, or 10th pro fight, and you're live on Sky. You've had a change of opponent. The guy you're going to fight was like 6'5", 6'6". The guy you are fighting now is the same height. You're 6'2". The guy's coming 3 days' notice. Change of opponent. Guys come to fight. You know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, I personally, you know, he got it. He did the job. So there's not much more.
So will the fight between him and Richard still happen?
Don't know. Richard pulled out 3 days' notice. 3 days before the fight. So they flew Gavin in. Not much I can say, really. Sad for the young man, because you know, you get a chance to fight on Sky, nobody's seen you.
I'm happy that that in the absence of Vladimir Klitschko being the heavyweight champion, that the division is starting to heat up. You know, young talent, they're coming out of the woodworks to fight, and David could get in that crew. David's got to stay busy. He's got to stay visible, and he's got to fight better fighters. You know.
Yep.
And Richard Towers also has got to do the same thing.
Anthony Joshua, as you know, is going to be fighting Charles Martin of No Secret, world title fight. Tyson Fury has come out and said that he believes that Joshua's going to get KO'd by Martin. I've been saying it for a while. I'm not sure if Joshua is going to deal with somebody that big, that strong, and that hungry. It's one thing knocking over guys that, you know, don't come to fight. And then the first fight he had against Dillian White, we still don't know how good Dillian White is.
So, I'll say this here much for Joshua. He couldn't have had a better preparation to fight Martin socially, mentally, than Dillian White.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But Dillian pushed him,
Intensity. But Dillian wasn't in
Yeah.
shape. Dillian came with an injury. So, I mean, you just think to yourself, if Dillian was in shape
An injury.
and injury-free,
Dillian came with an injury.
shoulder injury.
Well, whose problem is that?
I did say this before him going into the fight, and people said, "Nah, let him fight."
No, like Floyd Mayweather Sr. said to Ray Leonard, I fought I had an injury. Ray Leonard said it wasn't my problem. And I'm saying the same thing about Dillian White and Anthony Joshua. It wasn't Joshua's problem. I mean, they're both my friends, but the keeping it real was one person's problem more than another. That's the way the boxing goes. Larry Holmes said many years ago, he said, no boxer comes to the dance in shape. There's always something wrong with a boxer. Larry Holmes said this, he said, there's always something wrong. There's always something psychological that a boxer has to overcome when he steps in the ring. Whether it's a pinched nerve in the back of his neck, a sore elbow, a sore shoulder blade, a sore nose, chin. He says something's always wrong. Larry Holmes says boxers never come in 100%. So that what's going on now, we're saying, this guy, Dillian, that's out the window with me, That's something that boxers just got to live with. We all live with certain pains in our life. In our daily lives, we live with certain pains. We just learn to live with it. Back pains, knee pains, this pain or that pain. We just somehow psychologically, socially, spiritually say, I just got to deal with it. I've tried everything. I got to deal with it. I think that this is a good test for both guys. Martin is a big, strong southpaw, and Joshua is a big, strong orthodox. And, man, it's just going to be fireworks. I think this is a 5-round fight, if that. Because emotion is going to flare. They're both going to be going for it. And somebody's going to get knocked out. That's all I can say. Somebody's going to get knocked out in this fight. This is not a fight made to go 12 rounds. This is not made to go 12 rounds.
Does the condition at altitude help Martin more in an intense fight or not?
Just focus, jokers, please.
Really?
I think that, like you said, they train the big bear. What is it? The white blood cells.
Up in Big Bear Mountain. I don't know where it is. Up at the summit. That's where Abel Sanchez's gym is. So you're telling me high altitude training doesn't open up lungs and help more to go 12 rounds?
Listen, I'm a boxing trainer. I'm not a conditioning coach. I'm not a physician, and I bump that stuff. When they get in that ring, it's going to boil down to who can evade the other punches. Somebody's going to get clipped in there, and I'm sure the last thing will be in their mind is oxygen. Once them punches start going in there, the last thing will be in their minds, how much oxygen I got. So, it might help. I guess it does help. If you go up with ass or whatever, I guess it does help. If you say so. But when that bell rings, I don't want to hear that shit. You got to fight. I don't want to hear nothing about that bullshit. I don't want to hear about nobody, no air, no oxygen. How about to say I punch you in your mouth, say how much oxygen you got left?
Uncle Bashir's on form tonight.
I think it's psychological. I think as much as that's psychological. I see the guys in the gym with the mask on.
Yep.
Guys that's at sea level.
Right.
And they have the mask on to emulate being at above sea level.
Right.
Okay. And then when you get ready to go home and eat, you got to take the mask off. You're right back at sea level. So, I mean, what was that all about? It just, it leads me to, like they say, inquiring minds want to know. You've had this mask on in the gym for 2 hours, okay. You take it off, you take a shower, you go home, you walk the streets, you go home, you eat dinner, you wake up, in the morning. Possibly most of these guys are running. You go back out and run in the morning, maybe with the mask on again. I think that's a lot of psychological bullshit. All right? It's a lot of psychological bullshit. This is a fight, man. This ain't no aerobics class.
Aerobics class.
Shit, man. Come on, man.
Uncle Bashir, you're in fine form tonight. You're in fine form.
I saw a fight years ago. It was one Kid Mesa, and Lupe Pintor.
Okay.
And they fought above sea level.
Right.
And something happened in that fight that I had never seen before, I had never seen since. Both of them, in the corners, they had to put oxygen masks on. In the corner doing the fight. One Kid Mesa, Meza, versus Lupe Pintor. And they were fighting for the championship of the world. I don't know whether it was 12 rounds or 15 rounds. But they fought somewhere in the mountains of Mexico, and they had to go in the corner and put oxygen masks on the fighters between them. I had never seen that before. I never saw it since.
That's something to check out. I'll have to look into it.
Yeah. One Kid Mesa versus Lupe Pinto for the world championship. So I think that a lot of stuff that's going on in boxing today is simply psychological. You know, it gives a false sense of achievement, a false sense of confidence.
Okay.
You know, the slapping with the pads, and they're doing bongo lessons on the pads.
Bongo lessons on the pads.
And it's like a false sense of security. And you get in the ring and some guy with a stiff jab busting you in your mouth and busting you in your nose and busting you in your chest with this jab. And all of a sudden, all that
fancy stuff,
pad work I was doing, all that fancy pad work I was doing, all of a sudden means nothing. It means nothing. So I think that a lot of stuff that's going on in the sport today is a false show of bravado, if you will. Not much of achievement, false confidence. We're selling goods here, I'm selling you the London Bridge. If you just close your eyes and imagine yourself owning it, you're going to own it. Just give me the money. So I don't put my stock in it. And I have people say all the time, so you're just an antiquated guy. They call me antiquated, call me a dinosaur.
There we go. You've led me straight into it. Some would say that you're old-fashioned and don't want to take on new ideas. What are your thoughts on that?
Say it again?
Some would suggest that you're old-fashioned and don't want to take on new ideas and haven't got hip to new age technology. Evander Holyfield used calisthenics, correct? And he did ballet classes for his footwork.
Well, I can't say yay, I can't say nay. I'm not saying it doesn't work.
Right.
But I am saying it's not going to work for the majority. All right? I think it's, again, a psychological ploy. If one believes that, then fine, it's going to work. But I wouldn't employ it.
I remember watching Evander Holyfield train when he was moved up to heavyweight. And he had those strings.
One thing before I forget.
Yes.
I can argue that, okay, the boxers of yesteryear, Henry Armstrong, Kid Chocolate, Gavilan, all these guys, they had upwards to 79, 100. Some of them had 120 fights. Someone was fighting, I think Ray Robinson had 3 fights inside of 6 weeks. That doesn't happen anymore. But they had upwards to 100 fights and 120 fights. And now boxers' careers are usually ending at when they get 30 fights, if that. Maybe 35 fights. With all this modern technology, how could their careers be ended with 30 fights? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And yesteryear, these guys was fighting 3, 4, 5 fights in a year. Some fights 7 fights in a year. in 125 fights. If you look at Armstrong's record right now, I'm sure he had over 100 fights. If you look at Ray Robinson's record.
I would say the only one currently, I think, is...
Look, Olsen,
yeah,
Graziano. Look at all those guys' records, how long they're doing. And they were from the old school.
Mm-hmm.
And they were fighting all of those fights. And all those guys weren't that worse when their careers was over. Graziano was doing muffler commercials and stuff, and Jake LaMotta is still around. He's still around, So all of them, they're no worse off than the fighters now who have only 20, 25 fights with all this modern technology. So I can resort to that. I can use that as a defense as to why I don't change. A lot of people they come in with these, I see them checking the pulse, looking at watches, checking the heart. They got all kinds of things on the heart while they're running. Whatever. Does that make you some kind of scientist? Does that make you smart? Does that make you clever? I don't think so. I think that's a bunch of hoopla to make the boxer think that you're smart, that you know what you're doing. But it still boils down to one thing. When the referee says, seconds out, let's go. Ding, bring it up. 2 guys in the ring boxing. All those smart people with all those holding your wrists and checking your pulse and stuff, the guy's going to say seconds out and you're in there all by yourself. I'm strictly old school. I believe in old school. I think that it was better for boxers because boxers stayed with boxing-related tasks. They didn't go outside of that. They didn't go out playing hopscotch and tiddlywinks and stuff, running around and stuff. I don't believe in this stuff. I think it's all psychological. Sure, there's always somebody that's going to argue with me about the pros and cons of boxing. Well, you're just old-fashioned and this and that. But I can't prove that it doesn't work. And they can't prove that it does work. Because if you can prove that it does work, then why aren't boxers having longer careers? Why aren't they better than the fighters of old? There's so many questions I could ask about that. You got all this modern technique and stuff. So where's it at? Where's the proof? There's no proof.
We'll talk about 2 more fights very quickly. Lucas Brown and the whole PED saga. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know. I mean, the guy said he doesn't know anything about it. Somebody gave him something over the counter. I'm just fed up with that stuff. I think that the establishment, the powers that be, need to step to these guys and listen. If anybody get caught using PEDs, you're out of the sport. For life, you're out. You did it to Panama Lewis, Jose Resto, you got to do it to everybody else. You can't slap them on the wrist and say, oh, you got a year out, year suspension. What kind of warning is that? Slap on the wrist, okay, we got 2 years. You're 2 years out. I think Britain pushed you out for 2 years. You're out of the sport for 2 years, and then you can come back and do it again.
What about...
If you get caught one time, you're done. You're finished. You're out.
What about fighters that get their water spiked and stuff like that?
The what?
Fighters that get their water spiked.
The water spiked?
Yes.
Vladimir Klitschko doesn't allow nobody around his water. One person handles his water from training camp to fight site to the end of the fight. One person handles that water. One person is responsible for the water. One person sleeps with that water. All right? To make sure that nobody tampers with the water. So that's a simple way to stop it. Make one person responsible for it.
And for the food, when you're in the country?
Well, we bring our own food. Vladimir Klitschko brings his own food. He buys his own food. We get the fight site, he buys his own food. You're at the top of the game. Why you can't buy your own food? You go to the market, you buy the food fresh, and you let your chef make the food. your mom, your wife, or whoever you got, let them make the food. You go to the market, you buy the food, and you handle the food. Nobody's in that kitchen, nobody's around that food, coming or going. That's how you end that kind of stuff. It's simple. It's simple. It's not that deep. Somebody spiked the water, right? So what you do? You left your water in the gym that night and came back the next day and drank it again.
Well, the story's come out now that he was okay beforehand. It was after the fight.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right.
So you're not convinced.
So he drank the water and they gave him the urine test.
I don't know, but I don't know what the story is. I don't know what the real story is. But what can you say?
If you get caught using drugs, you're out of the sport for life. You can't even work a corner. It should be. If the powers that be, that's a stern message. If you get caught using drugs, you're out of boxing for life.
There's a lot of people that believe that a lot of boxers are using it. The top level boxers are using it and not getting caught because they're giving money. They're giving money to the sanctioning bodies.
Well,
are you of the belief of that, or do you think that's codswallop?
I think that there's a lot of crime going on in the sport.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of people who want the sport to be cleaned up. You know? I think a lot of people want the sport to be cleaned up. Nobody's doing nothing about it. You can't have a guy using PEDs or growth hormones and things of that nature and then say, okay, we're going to slap you on the wrist for 24 months and then you come on back and do it again.
But okay, what about if everyone was allowed to use PEDs? If everyone was allowed to use PEDs, there'd be no problems, would there? You'd have a more level playing field.
Yeah, everybody was screwed up 8-9 years from now.
That's their problem. That's their problem because they know.
Yeah. Wake up in the morning, then you got another foot looking like yellow pages at the bottom of the bed. Damn, I got 3 feet. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what these drugs is going to do, what kind of effect it's going to take on your body overall.
But people are doing it anyway, so how do you combat it? If the sport and the people that the powers that be will not clean up the sport and take the responsibility to do it, then everyone should do PEDs. So then, therefore, there's nobody getting an advantage or headway.
Well, there's not be time for me to get out of the sport. I don't want to be bothered with stuff like that. I don't want to be going down to drugstores, finding which ones is, stronger than the other. And then you see them, this might be the Jamaican blend. You see it might be the Ethiopian blend. That might be the German blend, I don't want to get involved. I just want to teach boxing.
Of course.
I don't want to get involved.
But then it's not a fair sport, is it? It's not a fair sport, is it? Because if you're saying that there is corruption in the sport and there's possibility people are using it, then if you know your guy's getting beaten by a guy that's on PEDs, no matter what you're training your fighter to do, if the other guy's naturally bigger and stronger because of the PEDs and not because of his boxing ability, then what?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't want no parts of it. If anybody uses PEDs, I can't work with them. If I find out they use PEDs, I don't want nothing to do with it. You're hard out in the middle of a fight and they find out you're on PEDs. I don't want anything. I don't want that on my conscience. I don't want nothing to do with it. I want to win or lose, fair and square. Fair and square. That's what the sport was designed to be. And the power, and those who want to do it for money or some kind of edge in the fight, let them do that. I don't want nothing to do with it.
Let me finish off with this fight: Chisora versus Pulev.
Tough fight. But tough fight. Got to find out what Chisora has left. Does he want to be there? That's a tough fight for Chisora. That's a very tough fight for. How tough will it be for Pulev? Just to have to be judged on what Chisora shows up to fight Pulev. When is that fight going to take place?
I think it might be next month. It's soon. It's for the European title.
It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight. But we got to see what does Chisora mentally, spiritually have left. Does he still want to be there? Does he still want to do it? Isn't Chisora in Deontay Wilder's camp?
No, not that I know of. Is that what you heard? He's signed with Sauerland.
Yeah. Just got to find out what Chisora shows up. Does he still want to do it? I know Pulev still wants to fight. All right? But we got to find out what Chisora is going to show up. Does Chisora still want to fight? If he wants to fight, it's a fight for Blip too.
A lot of people are saying Pulev's finished because of the Klitschko fight. Is that a bit too soon to write him off?
Yeah, it's a bit too soon. I think the fight's going to make him better. I think the fight's going to make Pulev better. I think that will make him better. Klitschko caught him with a good punch and put him out, you know. But I think he learned from that fight. I think he's going to be a better fighter because of it.
And the fight's been announced, Povetkin-Wilder?
It's a tough fight for both guys.
In Russia?
Again. Mm-hmm.
I can't see Wilder coming out of Russia with that belt. I really can't. If in America, I'd give him a great opportunity, a great chance, but a greater chance.
Well, the Russians put up the money. The Russians put up the money, so there it is. They put up the money, and there it is. You know, that's the end of that story. The Russians put up the money, so now there's one way he can come out of there with the belt intact. You know what that he has to do?
He has to knock Povetkin out.
He knows that too. Huh?
He has to knock Povetkin out.
Yeah, he has to knock him out. And that makes him vulnerable to be knocked out. So this is going to be a good fight.
Is there other things he should be concerned of going to Russia and trying to knock Povetkin out? That's not the script, is it? In Russia.
He better. If he want to be on the safe side, because Povetkin's going to fight. I know from him fighting Klitschko, he's going to fight. He's not going to be worried about fighting Deontay Wilder. He wasn't worried about fighting Vladimir Klitschko. He's not concerned about Deontay Wilder's punch power. He wasn't that concerned about Vladimir Klitschko's punch power. So he's not going to be that concerned about Deontay. Deontay is a powerful puncher, but I think Povetkin mentally is over that hurdle. He said, well, if you can punch, you better be able to punch because I'm going to be able to punch. It's going to be a tough fight. And some big bombs will get thrown in that fight early. So, I'm expecting.
Who's your money on?
I wouldn't touch that fight. I wouldn't touch that fight. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't touch that fight. Deontay Wilder showed what he can do when he finds something to punch on. He shows what he can do. And Povetkin has shown the same power. These are two powerful punchers to me. You know, two big, strong guys.
Skill level must go to Povetkin.
Yeah. But that might help. The fact that his skills is not that, that's stellar, That might help him, his awkwardness. And the way he throws random bombs, it might help him. He throws random bombs and you don't know where they might come from. It's going to be a tough fight. Either way, I think the fight going 5 rounds also, 5, 6 rounds. Somebody's out of it. Because Povetkin's going to try to push up on Deontay, and Deontay is not going to have it. And he's going to lead out. He's going to get hurt in that fight.
And for those people who want to know about Usyk, can you just give us an update on your champion situation?
We had a little in sparring. The first week of sparring, we had a little injury, slip and fall injury. We have to wait and see what the doctor says after weeks of therapy. And then we'll go back into training. Late April, early May, we'll go back in training again. But we just want to take time out, let the doctors do the therapy. Like I said, it was a trip and fall during the sparring, and it's just a mild injury. Nothing. We was in the gym yesterday and today. Mild injury, just a typical setback in training camp. Something that you can't happens in training camps all the time.
So when will he be back, and will he fight Simmons?
I don't think we're going to fight Simmons now. I think that fight's going to pass by. I don't know what the promoters have planned, but it doesn't make sense to me.
What did you think of Simmons before the fight was obviously announced?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I haven't even had time to look at it. Okay. Usyk told me that he knew the guy from the amateurs, that they boxed each other in the amateurs.
Tough and rugged. Scottish. Come forward.
Yeah, well, if you come forward, you're going to get chopped up by Usyk. A lot of guys are tough and rugged when they come in to fight with Usyk, and they leave out like Mary had a little lamb. You can't be just tough and rugged with a boxer like Usyk that can punch. So, I think that it doesn't make sense to fight Simmons now. I think that we need to just wait out the winner of Cunningham versus Lavoski, who wins the fight. And when we go back in the training camp, we'll be going in the training camp to prepare for the World Championship.
So there'll be no fight in between. There'll be no fight in between. Straight for the World Championship.
No, I think we go straight for the World Championship. It doesn't make sense again, I don't know, again, what the promoters have planned, but my thinking is that we don't need that. We don't need no fight in between. We need to just go ahead and start preparing to fight the winner of Lavoski and Stevie Cunningham. Whoever wins the fight, that's who we're preparing to fight. That's who we want to fight. We want the World Championship, and we're not going to stop until we get it. It doesn't matter who wins. Stevie Cunningham, Steve wins the fight. More people, they have to agree to fight something a small amount of time. And we want to just get in the fight and try to win the fight. Either way, the fight is a tough fight. It's a world championship. Nobody's giving away world championship. We're going to have to fight to get it, and we're going to prepare for it. We're going to prepare for it and going to try to win it, whether it's Steve Cunningham or Glavoski.
Okay, fair enough. Uncle Bashir, is there anything else you want to say before we end our little conversation?
Boxing is in need of a... It's in terrible shape. It's terrible shape. Because nobody has to have credentials to be managers, trainers, seconds. Nobody. You can't go on basketball, you can't go on football, you can't go on baseball, you can't go on rugby, you can't go into tennis, you can't go into none of these other sports without credentials. And because the commissions around the world do not require credentials, that's why these tragedies are going to continue to happen, because nobody has to have credentials. Can you imagine walking into NBA saying, listen, I want to coach this team? Somebody will say, hey, man, you can't even go into horse racing. But you can't even be a training horse. You can't even train horses unless you got credentials. But in boxing, you can walk into a corner with a towel on your shoulder and say, I'm the trainer for this man. And don't have a clue as to what you're doing. And until somebody, the powers that be, the commissions, are sanctioned by it, until they start requiring until they start requiring, putting their foot down, this tragedy situation is going to continue to happen over and over and over and over. And if somebody said today or tomorrow to ask every individual that was heading up a team to put their credentials on the table. I guarantee you 85% of the people, if that, it may be more, 90% of them probably couldn't come up with the credentials to justify their position. Justify the position. And I see it over and over and over, and I'm going to keep talking about it until somebody lends an ear and say, you know what, this guy is right. This didn't happen yesteryear. Now it's commonplace. You can just walk in. Oh, I trained an amateur guy last week, so now I'm in training, And I blame the boxers too, but the boxers sit back and they don't ask for no credentials. The boxers don't abuse. They don't ask for no. Even their family should say, what kind of credentials does this guy have? How do we know he won't let you get killed in that corner one day? How do we know what he's teaching you is correct? There's no overseer. There's nobody to check these people out. They just basically take him on word of mouth. He's all right. He knows. So it's going to keep happening. And that's my position on it, It's going to happen over and over again because nobody gives a damn. Boxing is a bastard sport. Yes, the bastard sport. The powers that be, they accept this and they don't accept that. It's amazing, you have some people, like I said, the powers that be, they steer everything. They chose who they want to be up top, and if they don't, too bad, But the sport, I'm talking to the boxers out there. Pay attention to who you have in the corner giving instructions. Nobody does nothing. They say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Who said that? That's so stupid to say. That's a stupid saying. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So when do you fix it? After you get, or if you could troubleshoot and say, you know what, this might cause us some problems down the line. We need to correct that now before tragedy strikes. What they say, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It makes more sense than if it ain't broke, don't fix it. These guys, they wait till they get in trouble, and then they realize, you know what, I've got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. There's so many people out there who don't have proper training. They don't have proper training. They don't have proper training. I keep saying that. And the guys go up in the corner, and you sit back and you listen to some of the instructions that's being given in those corners. And I'm saying, oh my God, the boxer don't realize that this guy don't know what he's doing. I'm sitting there because I'm always interested in hearing what the trainers are telling the boxers, because I am a student of the game. I want more and more and more information as I go. So when I see these guys in the corner, I want to know what these guys are telling the guy. Can I use this? What's he telling this guy? Can I use that? That was some good bit of information. I'll take that there and I'll reincorporate it into my own plans. But I don't be attracted to in the corners. I hear a lot of cheerleading, a lot of tap dancing, but I'm not getting no real wisdom from the corner, I don't see no real development of something that could be passed on to another fighter. I don't see that. So naturally, I'm critical of it, Do I have all the answers? No, I have different. Why? Because of my experiences, The people I've worked with, people that I've asked questions and learned from, And that's what's missing from the sport also. They don't ask questions. Everybody, everybody knows. Everybody is a wise scientist. Everybody is smart. They're so smart, they're stupid, as my mother would say. They're so smart, they're stupid. And I sit back and I let them continue to be stupid, because if you don't ask them, I won't tell you. And that's it all in a nutshell. It's just terrible. And you saw that with this guy, Nick, the other night. His corner should stop that fight. His corner should stop that fight. He said, but he had Gary Lockett in the corner, or whatever his name is. He's Lockett. He's a fighter. So what is he's an ex-fighter? Sometimes that's a dangerous sign as an ex-fighter, because fighters tend to be, not every one of them, but most boxers try to train their boxer to do what they did or the way they was trained, instead of looking at the person as an individual and saying, no, I need to train this person on this here, on this more so than that. But most boxers who come to train boxers, they can't train a dog to scratch fleas. You know? They come into the sport with this ridiculous styles, and I look at it, I travel a lot of places in the world and in the United States, and everywhere I go, I see the same mistakes being made. The same exact mistakes being made, and they're passing it on to young kids. I see little kids in the gym, 11, 12, 13, being taught wrong right from the beginning. Being taught wrong. But you can't say nothing, because people say, well, look, this is how I do it. What are you going to say? And then somebody's going to have to come back later on after the damage has been done and try to rectify it. That's being taught wrong. A lot of mistakes are being made in and around the training camps and the preparations. There's a lot of mistakes being made, but they'll only find out when they get a loss. We have to sit back and watch. There are two big fights going on. Deontay Wilder versus Alexander Povetkin, Charles Martin versus Anthony Joshua. Those fights are standing out. I've trained a lot of fighters in my life, but my forte is training the big guys, the cruiserweights, the heavyweights. So these fights are standing out particularly in my mind, I can train any boxer that's listening, that's susceptible to knowledge, not foolishness. I guess because of my ways, a lot of guys won't stay with me or train with me, but I don't like a lot of foolishness. I like to get down to the nitty-gritty of training the proper way, the way the old school guys did. I know that we're doing it right like that. I don't like the earphones in the ear in the gym and the hip hop music and those. I don't like that. You can't. I mean, if you work for the fire department, the water department, the city hall, you can't do that kind of bullshit. You can't come in there with earphones and stuff. Can you? You can't do that. You got to come in there to work. And so when you come in to train me, I want the same kind of attention. I don't want you coming to the gym with your girlfriend, with a breast on out. Don't bring her in the gym. Don't bring her in the gym. This is a place for her. You can't do that at any other job. Don't do it at this job. I'm into discipline and being focused and keep your eye on the prize. And so what happened to Nick the other night, that tells you how serious this sport is, how serious your attempts got to be. You got to be registered and focused.
Can't play boxing.
You can't play boxing. It's a dangerous sport. It's a dangerous business, And the boxer got to watch out for themselves, especially. I think that, Timothy Bradley is a good guy, and I'm a Timothy Bradley fan, but I think that he's in for a big disappointment in this fight. I think that Manny Pacquiao is going to stop him this time, and mostly because Timothy Bradley is being trained by an overzealous Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas is an overzealous guy. People label him as trainer, But I haven't seen what Teddy Atlas has done as a trainer that would indicate that he's a good trainer. Everybody that he works with leaves him. So I think that Pacquiao is going to knock Bradley out this time, not because Bradley is a bad fighter, but because Teddy Atlas is going to try to get Bradley to do something that he's not used to doing, you know? And that could be any number of things with Teddy Atlas is training. Nobody speaks up or speaks out about it. I'm just giving my opinion again, and I'll give my opinion until I'm dead. And I think that this time Pacquiao will stop Bradley somewhere in this next fight. I think so. You know, this Teddy Atlas is going to try to get this guy to do something different or something
crazy.
Something
Macho.
Something that he's not capable of doing. He's going to get him knocked out this time. Yeah, by knockout this time. I don't know what's going to happen. Somewhere between 1 and 7, the fight will be over. I think Bradley will be knocked out by Pacquiao. That's my opinion. So we'll wait to see.
Uncle Bashir, thank you so much for talking to Bayloric TV and sharing such wisdom as always.
I try to do the best that I can. I try my best to do the best that I can. I just feel for the boxers out there. Just watch out for your ass. Check out the people around you. Check out the information that you're getting from people. Observe the people around you. And if you're wise and you really are concerned about your growth in boxing, then you'll observe and check out the people that's around you, the people that's calling the shots, the people that's supposed to be your trainers, your managers, your promoters. Check out, observe everything that they're doing, and that will lead you to understand and see that this person is good for me or this person is not good for me. And they're not good for you, then your life is in danger for as long as they are around you, or as long as you allow them to be around you.
If a boxer's listening to this now as we're talking and wants to contact you, how do they contact you, Uncle Bashir?
Contact me on Facebook.
Okay.
Contact me on Facebook or contact me on Bayloric TV.
Thank you very much. I've become your PR man.
Contact me. You know, it's easy to contact me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You know, it's easy to contact. I'm a very visible person. You know, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you can't contact me there, then hey, you know, you can contact me. I'm easy to get in touch with. You know. But I'm just telling the young people out there, the young boxers out there, the old heads, they know what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. But the young guys that's coming, they're the ones that's most vulnerable because they're on a new highway. When they come into the professional ranks, they're on a new highway, the bright lights and stuff. They get caught up in it, and they don't realize that they're being duped by con artists that's posing as good trainers and good managers and stuff. Just observe. Just sit back, keep quiet, and observe the people around you, and that will tell you, do these people will have my best interest in mind, or am I just a new hustle? Am I just another part of the new, you know? And then once you observe that, then you'll be safe. You'll be safe. If you don't observe it, then you're in jeopardy.
Indeed.
All right? Just go to YouTube and look over boxing's tragedies. And then when you look at those fights with Levander Johnson versus Jesus Chavez, this last fight with Eubank and this young man, Nick Blackwell.
Nigel Benn and John McClennan, Eubank versus Michael Watson 2. Those are some.
Abdul Salam versus Mikey Perez.
There you go.
Look at those fights, and you tell me when you're watching those fights, can you see something that's wrong? Can you see at what point those fights should have been stopped, and then the fighter rushed to the hospital? The sooner you get to the hospital, the better the fighter's chances are of being saved. But if you got the guy going round after round after round after round, with every heartbeat, the brain is expanding inside of the skull. It's causing damage, irreversible damage. So if you can see something wrong in the first round, you stop the fight, rush to the hospital, and stop the injury there. Induce a coma or something where the brain is not active. Then, I'm not saying that it would always hit about, but the sooner you catch an injury, the better off the boxer will be. Boxers got to wake up. They got to wake up and start observing what's going on around them. What's going on around them, who they got around them, are they capable, do they have credentials? That's the biggest thing. Do you have credentials? If you got a Mercedes-Benz, a BMW, do you take the vehicle to Joe on the corner or the corner gas station, or do you take it back to the dealership that you know that's got a history of working on these cars and correcting the faults of the car?
You go back to the dealership. You go back to the dealership. That's common sense. But common sense goes out the window when it comes into boxing anyway. You know this.
But I'm just to the boxers. The boxers got to start using their sense. There's so many guys that I see that I encounter, guys that was in the Olympics going back to the 70s and stuff, and I see them now. What's the young man? I just met a young man down in Georgia. He was a good second welterweight kid. I can't think of his name right now, but he was coherent and he was alert. But he shared some things with me. He said, if I knew then what I know now, how I would have done it differently. Go and talk with the fighters of the past. If you're going to be a boxer in your hometowns, sit down and talk with guys that have been out there, guys that have boxed before. Not saying that they're going to be all wise and fine, but they will allude to some things that you might find interesting in your home.
Indeed.
Yeah. They can tell you what things not to do, what places not to do, who not to get involved with and stuff. I've just seen this kid Nick Blackwell being hurt like that. This is what we got to the fighter. Like I said, the 4-round fighter. Starting right there. The 4-round kids that's just starting out. Check the people around you. Check their credentials. Make sure they are qualified. Make sure that they're qualified. See what their track record, who you work with. What have you done in boxing? Who have you worked with? Who have you worked with? What qualifies you to be a boxing trainer? Because they actually got your life in their hand.
Indeed.
They've got your life in their hand. They don't pay attention, then you're dead. I see it. I've seen it so many times. They've got to look back on boxing's tragedies and try not to become the tragedy themselves.
Uncle Bashir, thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Have a good night. And contact me, write me. I'm here in Ukraine with my prize student, Alexander Usek. What a prize student he is. This young man is, he's just a godsend. He listens well, he executes well, and it's just a blessing to work with a guy like that. And this is an Olympic gold medalist, and he's as humble as they come. I haven't seen many guys with his kind of resume that's so humble. He's just so patient and stays under me. He's a sponge. Every day is a different subject that he wants to know about. He wants to watch videos. He wants to do so much to be better. And this is an Olympic gold medalist. This guy done won the world games and everything. He wants to be better. He's humble, and that's what makes it so easy for me to teach, because he's humble. He's not a big head. So let's see what happens going down the road, though. We're in pursuit of the world championship, and if God wills, we'll get it.
Thank you once again.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.